in the Middle podcast, the podcast dedicated to the music, movies, and culture of Generation X.
What is up, slackers, and welcome to another episode of the Stuck in the Middle podcast. I am your host, Jason Eck, and today begins the countdown to my surgery, which is going to be taking place on Monday. I've been stressed about it. I really have been. It's been somewhat impacting my overall mental well-being as I just think about it, and I had to go for an EKG, and there's something minorly off with my EKG. Not enough, it seems, to stop the surgery, thankfully, but I have a feeling I'm going to have to make some additional positive health changes subsequent to the surgery. I'll be out of work for a couple of days, hopefully no more than 2 days. Day of surgery, 2 subsequent days afterwards. Hopefully I'm feeling up to the task, but it's been very stressful. And then just a busy weekend prior, including a almost 2-hour trip to a school down in Rhode Island for my daughter to do a open house. So it's just been packed. So then for tonight, I'm going to try to get through my topic for this evening relatively quickly, but a couple of other things I want to just bring up that are not related to tonight's topic. But I saw a post on one of the social media accounts from the Smashing Pumpkins, who wrote, "It has been 31 years since the release of Today." Now, that's a great song off of Siamese Dream. Excellent album. That is the song that Billy Corgan credits with breaking his writer's block, which I think had been going on for like more than a year. So after they recorded Gish, he was just writer's block. Couldn't come up with anything new. And that opening riff, do 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 do, was the breakthrough for him. But it got me thinking, 31 years, this can't be possible. And here's what I thought of. One of my favorite records to play, and I say record, physical, vinyl record, because I'd gone through, I think like many of us, a really hardcore Led Zeppelin phase. In my middle school years. Now, I still listen to Zeppelin, but for whatever reason, I ended up seeing the movie, The Song Remains the Same. And I don't know, I really enjoyed it, the live performances. It gave something else to the music. So I ended up buying the vinyl recording of it. And I used to listen to that all the time. So I was listening to that somewhere between 80, I'd probably say 86. Now, Song Remains the Same came out in 1976, which means that record would have been 10 years old. It was considered, even then, classic rock. So think about that for a second. Let's think of some of the biggest bands of that era that would be considered classic rock, or who had things dedicated to them. What I mean by that is, and I could go down a whole episode just about radio, okay? But let's take a look at like the big bands. You had the Beatles, the Stones, Zeppelin, Sabbath, The Who, right? If you just take the Beatles, they started out in 1960. So by the time you get to 1980, that's 20 years. Okay, that seems reasonable. Zeppelin's first album came out in, 68? Last record was, 81, 82, something like that. But still, the time differential of when the Beatles first came onto the scene, it was still less than the 31 years since Smashing Pumpkins released Today. This is something I'm having trouble wrapping my brain around. I know consciously all these great albums that came out 31 years ago, 32 years ago, like that whole time period. It's just difficult to really consider, holy cow. So then what is classic rock? Now, what I mean by going down the road of radio. So I don't know if it was I believe it was national. So remember, there was Westwood One Presents. And I think it was on Sunday nights, and it was broadcast nationally, which was Ticket to Ride, which was the Beatles. And it was just, was it Sunday morning, Sunday evening? I'm pretty sure it was Sunday morning. And it would just be a block of Beatles tunes. And they would try to do deeper cuts and obviously plenty to choose from. Of course, the Beatles is anything really that deep of a cut because everything was played. Then you had, I think it was Wednesday nights. And the reason I think that sticks in my mind is because that's when I had visitation with my dad, huge Zeppelin fan. And they had Get the Lead Out, which was a block of Led Zeppelin. So you think about on your Apple Music or whatever it is, and you go to stations, and they try to go ahead and they mix it up. But I'm thinking more of like an Apple Essentials. This was on the radio, where these bands had reached such mythical status. And think about it. Zeppelin, we're talking just a few years after their final completion. So after the passing of John Bonham. So they had one release 2 years later, Coda, a lot of B-sides, etc. I think what, Coda was 82? So we're talking a band that had been active up until just a few years prior to this, firmly entrenched as classic rock in less of a time period than 31 years ago since Siamese Dream came out. I don't know. This age thing, man, it is not for the weak. So why don't we start off with another little mini segment that I like to do from time to time, which is notable passings. And before we get into our topic for this evening. And man, I just talked about him. Was it just last week? It was Scandals. So today, was it today or yesterday? Let me see here. Yesterday, September 30th, 2024, we lost the legendary Pete Rose. Excuse me. Now, of course, the scandal. Excuse me, folks. Yeah, and this is the last thing I need. I can't be sick for the surgery. So, I got to go to bed early tonight and, be all over it because I can't take any kind of medicines for the next week. Anyway, I'll try to get through this without coughing. But Pete Rose obviously bet on baseball. He bet on a lot of things, which has kept him out of the Hall of Fame. But when you consider his career, 3 World Series wins, 2 with the Reds, 1 with the Phillies, and records that still stand. So just think about this for a minute. Most career bats, 14,053. Most career plate appearances, 15,890. Most career hits, 4,256. Most career singles, 3,215. Most career times on base, 5,929. Most career outs, 10,328. Most career games played, 3,562. Most career winning games played, 1,972. Only player to play at least 500 games at 5 different positions. Think about that. First base, 939. Left field, 671. Third base, 634. Second base, 628. And right field, 595. Oh, the records keep coming. Most career runs by a switch hitter, 2,165. Most career doubles by a switch hitter, 746. Most career walks by a switch hitter, 1,566. Most career total bases by a switch hitter, 5,752. Most seasons of 200 or more hits, 10. That's shared. I don't have the other folks. Most consecutive seasons of 100 or more hits, 23. Most consecutive seasons with 600 or more at-bats, 13. Most seasons with 600 at-bats, 17. Most seasons with 150 or more games played, 17. And most seasons with 100 or more games played, 23. Not to mention National League specific records. Most years played, 24. Consecutive years, 24. Career runs, 2,165. Career doubles, 746. Most career games with 5 or more hits, 10. And the modern post-900 National League record for longest consecutive game hitting streak, 44. And finally, modern record for most hitting streaks of 20 or more consecutive games, 7. Rose also accumulated 63 4-hit games in his career. So look, we're not even getting to the fact that as a skipper, basically a winning record of 786 games, won 412, lost 373 for a winning percentage of .525. Look, I know he bet on baseball. I know. And it was determined it is a permanent ban. You listen to that, and he deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. They deserved to change that while he was still alive. And it's just bullshit, frankly. I get it, but he always out there trying to win. So if he was he betting against his own teams? It doesn't seem like it, because it seemed like he was trying to win every single game he played or was leading. So I know he didn't always do himself favors with some of the attitude and snark and all that, but also give him props for, having a feud with Kane from the WWE. But may he rest in peace. And maybe they will, it's shitty that it's posthumously, but he needs to be in the Hall of Fame, period. So next we have another American legend. We're talking about John Allen Amos Jr. As we all know, John Amos, known from everything from Roots to, of course, Good Times, Mary Tyler Moore, The West Wing, movies like Beastmaster, which is just a guilty pleasure, Coming to America, Lock Up, Die Hard 2. The guy's just fantastic. He also played football. He had gotten as far as being drafted. Signed a free agent contract with the Denver Broncos. Ended up getting released in the second day of training camp from a pulled hamstring, and then was signed as a free agent in 1967 by the Kansas City Chiefs, where legendary coach Hank Stram said, "You're not a football player. You're a man who is trying to play football." So he continued to play Continental Football League and independent football leagues. But I don't know, he had just such a gravitas, but could also play it light and could laugh at himself. I mean, you look at his overall, recurring character on 2.5 Men. He's on Police Story, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Martin, Touched by an Angel, Psych, that's right, he was on Psych, going all the way back to Sanford and Son, My Name is Earl, Lie to Me, Murder, She Wrote. I mean, and going back all the way to World's Greatest Athlete with Tim Conway and Jan Michael Vincent. Just so many things. And just a great actor, honestly. He definitely made that transition from sports into entertainment very, very well. So, the age of 84, rest in peace to John Amos. All right. So now, let's get into the topic. The name of the show is Stuck in the Middle. And we're obviously flanked by two very large, very vocal, very out there generations. Boomers on the left of me, millennials on the right. Here we are. And I guess to some extent, I don't want to say disappointed, but it certainly seems as though we haven't had the impact in certain elements of the overall culture as I would like or expect from us. Now, of course, I think it's become pretty known that a lot of the music from the late 80s and the 90s have really come back into vogue and focus. And a lot of those bands would have been kind of those mid-Xers like myself who rose to prominence in music and movies, etc., TV. But what about those real positions of power? What I mean by that is, you'll see by the title of this episode, captains of industry. I think of things as there's your power that's derived from your Hollywood types. That's one thing. And certainly there's overlap. There are strange bedfellows between Hollywood and politics, for example, or everything in politics, for example. But really, where does the power lie? Government and corporations. Now, as I'll talk about towards the end of this, the government piece, I don't talk politics on the show, but there's a certain element of our overall, I guess, worldview that makes, I think, our lack of major impact on certain elements of politics to be disappointing. Yet, on the corporate side, we have We have reached those tables of power, head of the table, if you will. But it seems as though those numbers are relatively small in the grand scheme of things. So I went looking at publications like Forbes, for example, Wall Street Journal, right? Business publications. And it seems to me that the overall mix of CEOs, etc., once again, boomers still clinging to power, still very much in power, not of this, hey, I'm going to reach a certain age, retire mindset. No, I'm going to keep earning, keep drawing a paycheck. And people are working until they're like 70 and 75. And, well, I feel great because modern medicine, and they're wealthy. I'm going to work till I die. Awesome. Great. Wonderful. What does that mean? It means that Gen X stays in middle to top management, not in the top seat. And the next thing you know, we're ready to retire, and the millennials are, boom, everywhere else. This leapfrogging of our entire generation. So the numbers of major corporate power brokers are far fewer than I would have anticipated. But let's just go through the list. And some of them, I think, are very well known. Let's just start off with a guy that is either loved or hated, or you love to hate him, or you hate to love him, whatever it is. One Elon Musk. Born June 28th, 1971. Firmly Gen X, 53 years of age. And what hasn't he done? He's leading the movement in clean energy. Frankly, the solar roof, not solar panels. The solar roof is fascinating. It's very costly, aesthetically pleasing, and it's just solar shingles. It's freaking cool. Leading the charge on EVs, electric vehicles, space exploration and reusable rockets, and of course, his infamous purchase of Twitter, now known as X, and considering himself a champion of free speech. It's a pretty diverse bag, including being an original founder of OpenAI, which is in all sorts of hot water. Who knows what's going on there? But obviously very, very intelligent, considers himself or has been diagnosed with autism. And as I always joke, he got the good autism, which is mathematics and science. I got the bad autism, that's pro wrestling. Nevertheless, he is certainly a captain of industry. He is in a seat of power across multiple industries, most of it, however, being in the tech space. So whether you're talking about tangible technology, Starlink, for example, that's one thing, but also now as an investor and owner of a social media platform. He's an inventor, a creator. He has built it all. Whether you love him or hate him, there's a lot of talk about, well, these different companies, did they get grants, government subsidies, all that. I get it, but pretty impressive. And one of the top guys in industry is a Gen Xer. And speaking of X, formerly known as Twitter, I didn't realize that he was Gen X. The next guy that I'm about to say, I could have sworn he was a millennial, because I think about one of his counterparts, if you will. One Mark Zuckerberg, of course, is a millennial. Jack Patrick Dorsey, November 19th, 1976, age 47. And of course, Jack Dorsey was the guy. He was the guy. So for those of you who don't know, he's a co-founder of Twitter. He's an OG. As well as co-founder, principal executive chairman of Block Inc., which is the developer of the Square financial services platform. As recently as October of 2023, he was estimated to be worth $3.1 billion. Occupation, programmer, internet entrepreneur. Yeah. In his younger days, he worked occasionally as a fashion model. Interesting. Yeah, he got into logistics and dispatch routing when he was 14 years old. Anyway, pretty impressive. Certainly he's talked about how he felt pressure as CEO of Twitter at the time with some of the things happening with government requests to suppress information. And he says in hindsight, he would have done it differently. But nevertheless, it is one of the most powerful platforms, no matter how people want to consider its value. by stock price, by revenue, whatever it is. Certainly, Musk took the approach of gutting the labor force by like 75 or 80%, some absurdly crazy number, and the platform has continued to function. So, yeah, different approaches, different styles, but got to put Jack high on the list of successful Gen X CEOs. Now, the next one, you might not have even heard the name before or what it is that she invented. Sarah Trelevin Blakely, born February 27th, 1971, age 53, invented Spanx. So for any of you who are unaware what Spanx are a form of, I don't know, I'm going to say undergarment. It lists it here as intimate apparel, but pants, leggings, etc. Basically, Spanx are meant to be slimming. And let's see, she worked at Donka. Research has been developing her hosiery idea. She spent the next 2 years and $5,000 in savings. So think about this. A patent, $750. Use her credit card to purchase the Spanx trademark. Excuse me. And what is the current valuation? Holy cow, is that true? Spanx achieved $4 million in sales in its first year and $10 million in sales in its second year. She and her husband were part of a group that purchased the Atlanta Hawks for $850 million. Her estimated net worth is currently $1.3 billion. Oh, because she sold it to frickin' Blackstone Group. Blackstone took a majority stake in Spanx. Blackstone, BlackRock, all these companies, they just make me crazy. Just buy up everything that they can. But to celebrate, Blakely gave each of her 750 employees $10,000 in cash and let them purchase 2 first-class plane tickets to any destination they desired. That's badass. Okay. Hey, she made the choice to sell, but you know what? That's awesome that she was able to do that and very philanthropic. So she has had an idea and turned it into a $1 billion business. Sometimes all it takes is one idea. Excuse me, folks. So next we have a CEO for a very powerful corporation. Whether I think they're good or bad is irrelevant. What matters is that pretty much if you're not on a Mac, and even then this is no guarantee, unless you're on Linux, you're using Microsoft. Satya Narayana Nadella, born August 19th, 1967, firmly Gen X. He is the chairman and chief executive officer of Microsoft, succeeding Steve Ballmer, Boomer, as CEO in 2014 and replacing John Thompson as chairman in 2021. So CEO and chairman of one of the major power companies in the world. I mean, there is not a basic PC in an office almost anywhere that isn't running on a Microsoft Windows platform. Computer networks are run on it. I mean, it's everywhere. It is one of the most pervasive brands anywhere. Yeah, it's crazy. But he worked at Sun Microsystems as a member of its tech staff before joining Microsoft in 1992. So here's the thing, 92, and just worked his way up the company. The fact that promotion from within was happening, again, with anything, you got to take the good with the bad. If you see a company that actually takes someone, as the old saying goes, from the mailroom to the boardroom, it's pretty badass, and I give him credit for that. Who knows who he had to crush to get there, but I'm sure there are a couple of people whose work he took credit for, because that's just how shit goes. But anyway, Satya Nadella, clearly a Gen Xer. This one blew my mind, because for some reason, I didn't think, because they've been around forever. And I'm trying to figure out, how did he do this? because it seems as though I remember this company being around forever. I'm talking about Michael Saul Dell, an American billionaire businessman and investor. He is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Dell Technologies. Yes, that Dell, which was, let's see, the original Dell. What's the original Dell? For some reason, I can't find when the company actually started, because this goes back in January 1984. Dell registered his company as PCs Limited. 1984. So he was 20 years old, 19 years old. I mean, crazy. At age 15, after playing with computers at Radio Shack, he got his first computer, an Apple II, which he promptly disassembled to see how it worked. I mean, this is a crazy, impressive story of just going out there and saying, I love working with computers. I'm going to do it myself. So basically what he started with was PC upgrade kits, add-on components, until he started to make his own computer. In 1992, at age 27, he became the youngest CEO of a company ranked in Fortune magazine's list of top 500 corporations. Super impressive. Really, it is. So I have to look at him as being such a beacon of kind of the entrepreneurial ingenuity that, I don't know, I guess I expected more of it from us. I don't know. But this also starts to get into those existential kind of arguments about if we really were whatever and slackers and kind of checked out. I mean, I know when I was 19, working on a business, not anywhere in my frame of reference. That was not even something I considered. I was too busy doing bad shit. So kudos to Michael Dell, who is still worth billions. Billions. Let's see. Holy cow. In March 1st of this year, 2024, Dell's net worth crossed the 100 billion mark after Dell reported an earnings beat, pushing the stock up 32% in the trading day and adding 13.7 billion into his fortune, from 90.6 billion to 104.3 billion, making him the 12th richest person at the time. Just a kid in a dream, brother. Just a kid in a dream. So the next one. So again, it's all basically, with the exception of Spanx, in the tech space. So either hardware or software. So next we have someone who's in the software space. And I know that they have a couple games that I sure like. Excuse me. This is not what I was looking for. Where is his page? Here we go. So Andrew Wilson just turned 50 in September. He is the CEO of EA. And all I can ever think of is EA Sports. It's in the game. Excuse me, folks. Yeah. I really hope this goes away in time. Anyway, but he has been chairman of the company since 2021 and CEO since 2013. He is a just Australian kid. And I say just because that's kind of how they have him described. He's just this kid from a working class family in Australia. Played rugby and basketball. But in the dot-com boom of the late 1990s, Wilson built Australian websites for international corporations. He subsequently also raised venture capital and launched IPOs for dot-com startups. So when the bubble burst, he joined EA's small video game development studio on Australia's Gold Coast. And what did he work on? EA Sports. In particular, becoming the executive producer on their FIFA franchise, which is massive. Absolutely massive. What's interesting is it says here that he initiated a player-first corporate strategy and offered more free-to-play games. But here's the thing, and then it says, and in-app purchase options. Look, if the only way for me to succeed in a game is I have to keep throwing money at in-app purchases and not being able, well, you can do it if you grind. think about a couple of games that I really enjoyed, and I knew people were spending money on it, and I just didn't want to do that. I would grind and I'd grind and I'd grind to get upgrades and better weapons and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's, well, it's capitalism. If someone is willing to pay, you offer them a product like, I want to buy all the best weapons, all the best armor, all the best whatever. Hey, man, all the power to you. I get it. It's awesome. But, man, it sucks. It sucks if you're not someone who wants to do that, that you want to just earn it and grind it out. Competitive disadvantage. Absolutely. But anyway, he is solidly Gen X. This one was also really interesting to me. Just because, I don't know, it just seems like it would be all boomers just because of the age of the brand, and the fact that he's also a Brit is fascinating to me. Stephen James Easterbrook, born August 6, 1967, is the CEO of McDonald's. It's just so interesting to me because there's no more Americana, no more American brand than McDonald's. It's just so fascinating to have this guy from Watford, England, as the top guy. Whoa, wait. What does this say here? No, he's not anymore. Oh, he was removed. Removed Easterbrook as CEO since he had violated corporate policies on personal conduct by entering into a relationship with a company employee. He was replaced as CEO by Chris Kempczynski, who'd been president of McDonald's USA. He had to return $105 million in cash and stock to the company in one of the largest clawbacks in the history of corporate America. He would return equity awards in cash with a current value more than 105. He would have forfeited had he been truthful at the time of his termination, and a result had been terminated for cause. What? Plus, SEC imposed punishments to include a $400,000 fine and being ineligible to serve as a director or executive for any public company for a period of 5 years. Wow, dude. I did not know any of that. Well, this Christopher John Kempczynski is the current president, chairman, and chief executive officer at McDonald's Corporation, and he is also a Gen Xer from right here in good old Boston, Massachusetts. Interesting. Oh, he was born here, but raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. Oh, well. He was the son of Richard Kempczynski, who was professor of surgery and chief of vascular surgery at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center. All right, then. Well, it seems to me that he might have had some good opportunities as a young man growing up. But yeah, he is the current guy. Huh. His total compensation was $20 million. But in 2023, this was 2021, total compensation was $20 million. In 2023, his total compensation was $19.2 million, or 1,212 times the median employee pay at McDonald's for that year. Oh, don't put it that way. See, my whole thing is this version of capitalism that we have, the Wall Street capitalism, where your primary objective is shareholder returns. I don't like the idea purely of shareholder. I think of stakeholder, and that includes your employees being stakeholders in the company, because if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers, et cetera, et cetera. I go back and forth on this. I don't think there should be arbitrary caps. I think that's bullshit if a company wants to pay it. I just think that a CEO of ethics, of morals, going to say, yes, I do deserve this. I've earned this. But shit, man, couldn't you spread that wealth around? Just put it out there. Oh, well, what are you going to do? And then last but not least, I guess I didn't think of him as a Gen Xer either. And then I read it and it makes perfect frickin' sense. Damon Garfield John. Damon John. He is the founder of FUBU, which stands for Us, By Us, and was created when the founders were brainstorming for a catchy 4-letter word, following other brands such as Nike and Coke. FUBU. So Damon mortgaged his home for $100,000. And with that seed money, the company's co-founders rebuilt half of his home as a factory while their other half remained living space. That is putting everything into this. And now he is well known as being one of the sharks on Shark Tank. I mean, one of his first jobs was handing out flyers for $2 an hour. In high school, he participated in a program that allowed him to work a full-time job and attend school on an alternating weekly basis, which he credits with instilling an entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah, I mean, he went all in. His mother taught him how to sew and supported him by allowing her house to be taken over to grow the business. Wool ski hats with their tops tied off with fishing line were popular at the time, and John noticed them being sold for $20, which he considered overpriced. So he went home and sewed about 90 hats with his next-door neighbor. They sold their hats for $10 each and made $800 in a single day in 1992. After the hats, they began selling screen-printed T-shirts. To break into the market, they sold on consignment at large events around the Northeast. To make ends meet, John held a full-time job at Red Lobster, working on the FUBU business in between shifts. I mean, that is the hustle. That is the grind. That is putting in the work. And now, what's his net worth? Let's see. I'm not even sure it says here. Oh, interesting. I know he went to Catholic school, but he is a practicing Catholic. Let's see. Damon John. What's his net worth? Oh, 30 billion. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. No, 350 million. He hasn't reached it yet, but he says that he has never been busier or more ambitious. But 350. I just underplayed 350 million. Like, well, it's not a billionaire. Who the fuck do I think I am? That is crazy. Yeah, he's doing just fine. Started out selling hats out of his mother's house, and he's worth $350 million, fully earned. You don't read that story and be like, he didn't put in the work. He absolutely did. That kicks ass. So those are the CEOs and the captains of industry, if you will. But that has me thinking. So as I wrap up for tonight, I'm going to get ready to go watch the vice presidential debate. And this is part of what got this whole idea in my head. Here we are in 2024, couple hundred years into this experience that is the United States. And if you think about it, and I'm being very precise here, because that's the whole basis of the show, is these arbitrary markers for what makes a generation. But in purest terms, just what the Social Security Index and the Census Bureau say is Gen X. We don't have any participating candidate in this race. So think about this. Donald Trump is an old boomer. Boomers start in 1946. He was born in 1946. So again, the cusp between two generations. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are both born in 1964. Do I think that they probably share experiential things with the oldest of the Xers? Of course I do. What's the difference between someone in 64 and 65? They're going to be listening to the same music, watching the same TV shows, seeing the same movies. I'm just being very literal and precise here. They are boomers. And J.D. Vance is a millennial, born in 1984. I just look at that as being so indicative of what I always talk about. It's why it's stuck in the middle. Here we are, and we got three boomers, an old boomer and two cuspers, and an outright millennial. Where's our representation? The closest we've ever been to the big seat, the leader of the free world, was Paul Ryan, who is the running mate of Mitt Romney and his failed campaign against Obama and Biden. Boomer and silent generation. I just thought by now we'd have a dog in the fight, really making some headway. And at the same time, just like, well, I don't even know if I want one of us in office necessarily, because Lord knows we're all over the place. That's also very indicative of our generation. We're not all one thing. And I hear people all the time like, well, I'm this or I'm that. I lean right. I lean left. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. I'm green. I'm whatever. Libertarian. I got little bits of all of it. Do you know what I mean? I don't fit in this one little tiny bucket. Because I don't think anyone should ever agree fully with any platform, anything, because why would you? But again, a presidential election without one of us somewhere near the seat of power. Yeah, we have plenty of representation in the Senate and Congress, but do any of them seem as though they're going to be next in line? I mean, I think the only saving grace is that chances are this might be the last boomer election. But Lord knows we're running people in their 70s and 80s, for goodness sake, and just keep trotting them out there. So who knows? Who's in their 70s now? That might be up to bat in 4 years. Or someone who's in their late 60s. Boomer. Another boomer. So that's it. Gen X. We are captains of industry, but nowhere near as widespread as I would have hoped or expected, and certainly no closer to the Oval Office. Here we are, stuck in the middle. So, let me know, what'd you think? Anyone that I have missed that's a glaring omission of someone's like, hey, you forgot about so-and-so, who's the inventor of whatever, or who runs whoever. Let me know. And how do you do that? You can email me at stuckinthemiddlepod@yahoo.com. You can find me on Instagram, X, and YouTube at StuckPodX. Head on over to the Facebook page, Stuck in the Middle, a Gen X podcast. Please like, comment, share, leave 5-star reviews, and most importantly, please subscribe to the podcast. So until next time, later, slackers.